Welcome to Conversation With. This is our BCAT program where we go in depth with one guest. And our guest today is Flip Herndon. Flip is the new superintendent of Bremerton Schools. He began his position on July 1st, and he has really hit the ground running. Welcome to the show, Flip.
Thank you.
Exciting times for the Bremerton School District, and I know there was quite a wide search, and you rose to the top. And first of all, I want to congratulate you and welcome you. I understand you began the 1st of July with the district,
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And I bet that was very frantic and hectic, but you did recently have a short vacation with your family, and it's now the beginning of August, hitting the ground running, and staff should be showing up. But first of all, Flip, let's hear a little bit about you. Tell everybody about yourself, where you're from, education background, that kind of thing.
Sure. I was actually born in Tacoma, Washington, born and raised there. And my father was in the military. He used to be a drill sergeant. And so we traveled a little bit, but he got out of the military when I was fairly young.
Good.
So we lived in Tacoma for a few years, then lived in New Jersey for a few years, and then moved back. And did all of my elementary, middle school, high school through the Clover Park School District. So I graduated down there and went to Whitman College in Walla Walla as an undergraduate. Got my master's degree at Harvard University. Did 3 years of doctoral study at Rutgers University when I was in New Jersey, lived out there and taught for a little while. And then moved back here in '97 after I found my wife, got married, and we've been in the Seattle area ever since. I did my principal credential and am trying to complete my doctorate through the University of Washington right now in educational policy. My wife is a teacher. She teaches at a small independent school in Seattle, very small, about 100 students, pre-K through 5th grade. Yeah, tiny.
Nice.
And I have 3 boys, 9, 6, and 4, and they're just fantastic. They have a ton of energy and do everything that boys do. So
very fun.
Yeah, they really keep us running. I have a sister. She lives in South Seattle, and she has 2 boys as well. So we try and get the cousins together whenever we can.
Oh, I bet that's a really good time, having all those boys together.
It is fantastic.
Flip, are you planning on living in Bremerton? You said you're pretty much based in Seattle. Do you plan on moving over this way?
Yes, I do plan on getting something. That's what I had said during the interview process. And I think it's important for me to be in the community and for people to see me. And, we'll figure out the logistics with the rest of the family as it goes. But I'm trying to secure housing here in Bremerton as soon as I can.
Do you plan on your children attending Bremerton schools?
We'll see how that goes. For right now, they've been involved in their school in Seattle for a little while, and my wife really enjoys that school. I'm sure she'd enjoy the Bremerton schools too, but when we went through that process, we said, look, let me go and do what I need to do, and the family's been very supportive of that. And I want to be supportive of my wife and family, and it's not a kind of this is me and I make all the decisions. It's really a family decision that we go through and we have the discussions about. So we'll see how it works out.
Well, that's great. So let's talk about the Bremerton School District. What intrigued you the most about this position?
I really believe that in general, I think the role of the superintendent is quite important for a school district and the success that they have. I think the superintendent is really responsible for making sure that the success of all facets of the school district are achieving as much success as possible. Obviously, the primary pieces are on student academic success and how they're doing and improvement. So that's important. But you have the other aspects of a school district that are kind of the business side that help support all of that student achievement. So how well is the finance department doing? If they're not doing well, there's not money to get the resources to support the students. How well is HR doing? Because you want to make sure that you're hiring the right people and going through proper evaluation pieces and all of that. I think the superintendent and their relationship and role with the various labor organizations is also extremely important. Usually you have several within a district, and so it's important that there are good relations and communications that go on there. Obviously, the role and relationship between the superintendent and the school board is an important piece, because the school board sets the policy and votes on everything, and so it's important that the superintendent is able to communicate the day-to-day operations to the school board, and that they have their trust and belief in the superintendent that they are doing a good job. For Bremerton specifically, what intrigued me about Bremerton is, one, the size. I think the size is great. I had been working in Tacoma the 2 previous years as an assistant superintendent, and Tacoma is a very large district. 29,000 students and 58 buildings, and there's a lot going on there. And you can make change and progress in a district that big. It just takes a little while longer. Bremerton, it's interesting, I was just at a new superintendent's orientation training down in Olympia recently. And so I met several of the other superintendents around the state that were going through, and one of the things they have you do is say who you are and which district you're in and all those kinds of things. And so I introduced myself and met some of the other superintendents, and they said, well, how big is Bremerton? And I said, it's about 5,000 students. And they said, wow, that's huge. And I said, well, it's a lot smaller than Tacoma, but interesting statistic on that was that there are 295 school districts in the state, and out of the 295, 240 of them are approximately 2,000 students or less. So there are several districts around that are much smaller than that. So 5,000 to them seems very large. When you talk about the Puget Sound area though, North Kitsap, Central, South, Peninsula, Tacoma, Franklin Pierce, I mean all of these districts are 5,000 and above. So it's a different kind of approach that you have on that. So it was the superintendent piece in general, what Bremerton had to offer. I think the size is great. I hear nothing but positives about Bremerton as a town, and being in this area, growing up in this area as a child. I used to come over to Bremerton every once in a while, usually to visit like the USS Missouri and check those things out. But I hear nothing but positives about how much the people in Bremerton are very proud of their town. It's a very hardworking town. And I think that's true of most towns. People are very happy on where they are, and when they decide to establish that as their home, they want to participate in their community. They want to be proud of where they are and where they live, and tell other people that, hey, this is a great place. And so what I want to do is make Bremerton, the school district in Bremerton, extremely strong, so that people are happy and proud to have their children in the Bremerton schools, and that when people are looking for places to live, they say, we want to go to Bremerton because we hear their schools are the best, and that's where we want our children. So I'm a very competitive person, so I always want us to be the best at everything that it is. Whether that be the best finance department, best HR, best teachers, best principals, best programs offered for students. That's my goal, is over the next several years to build Bremerton up to be the best in all areas. And it's already very good in several areas, but there are some areas that we definitely need to improve upon.
That's great. So what challenges do you see for the district in your first year? What are those tough things and we know the economy, number one, is extremely tough at this time, but how is that going to affect our district?
Budget is a huge issue right now. Obviously, the larger economy has an impact on the district, but the funding that we have received from the state obviously has some interesting tweaks and curves to it. If the state's not doing well in their collection of revenues, that then trickles down to the educational money that gets allocated out to the districts. We do obviously have some relief in some of the federal stimulus money that's coming our way, but that's only around for about 2 years. After that, it's yet to be determined how all of this is going to play out. The interesting part on that is that all of the districts are in that same position. In the past, you may have heard about a district being in trouble financially, but oftentimes it could be of their own making. Something was happening, or maybe they made some decisions that weren't that great, and so they're being impacted by their finances. In this particular case, the entire educational system is being impacted. So in a sense, Bremerton's not alone, which is a good thing. But in another sense, it doesn't take away the pain of saying, well, yeah, we're hurting, so is everybody else. It doesn't mean that we're hurting any less. Our challenges are going to be, how can we still meet the needs and continue the strong programs that we have to offer in this kind of environment and climate that we're dealing with? I think the future has just got such a question mark to it. That's the biggest piece. What we're trying not to do is rely too heavily on local economies to pick up the slack for what the state or the federal government can no longer provide. Because if they can't provide it, it's going to be very difficult for the local support to be able to pick up anything different. In addition to that, you also have private industries that in the past may have offered financial support. They're not necessarily in the position either. I think as the economy starts to come back, you might get some more private donations that come into districts. And not all of those have dried up, but certainly there's more competition for that. Grants are a little bit less than have been in the past. So we'll see what develops. I would say probably over the next 12 to 18 months to hopefully give us a little more read on where we will be in the probably 2011 school year and beyond. But that's the biggest challenge really, is budget. Because without that, if you don't have the money, it's, people aren't working for free. I mean, we get volunteers, but that's not who's teaching our classrooms right now, and that's going to be a real challenge. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that we're going to be facing.
Flip, there's a large number of students in the Bremerton district that are poverty level in their families, and free and reduced lunch, huge in Bremerton. How hard to change that, but how do we work with those families? How do we help parents be more comfortable in their child's school? If parents had not a good educational experience, it's hard for them to even walk into their child's school, because all those memories come flooding back, and thus parents aren't participating in their education. How do we get those parents to help their kids be more part of their education?
Well, I think there are two aspects of that that I think are very important. I agree with you, by the way, 100%, that oftentimes the parent participation in schools and the school district vary widely. Oftentimes you get very high parent participation at the elementary level. Parents come in, they volunteer, it's the first experience that their children have with the education system. They want to make sure everything's okay. That starts to drop off precipitously at the secondary level. Once you get to middle school and high school, I think there are a couple of things in play there. One is that the parents are dealing with teenagers now, and a lot of them, hundreds of them. I think the relationships that they already have are at challenge because children are changing and their perception of what's going on and how much they want their parents around and that kind of thing. The other is that children start to take on more responsibility, and parents want to give them that responsibility. So them being around all the time might be something of cramping their style, their children's style, and the children not being too excited about that. But it's still important, I think, for parents and community members to be involved at the middle school and high school level. It doesn't mean you have to be always in the classroom, doing the same things that you do at the elementary level. But I think getting people to volunteer and continue to participate in education at the secondary level is a big challenge and something that we want to do. So with that, we want to make sure that we're outreaching to parents and having them understand the programs that we have to offer, as much information about the school and the school district and their child's education as they want and can handle. So some of that is information through the website to make sure that they can access that. If they don't have computer access or internet access, then having other ways to communicate with them to figure out how we can get the information to them. Sometimes we do mailers, sometimes just outreaching in the community, different spots, community centers or churches or whatever else that might be out there where the schools can be a presence and might be a more approachable environment for parents to come and actually have the conversations. The other time that it's important to get information out is usually during conference time, because parents will show up very often to hear how their student is progressing. So if we can get other information out at that time too, so that if that's one of the only, 1 or 2 times that they come into the school, we want to make sure that they're doing that.
It's positive, right?
Yeah, the other is that we do want to make sure the schools are inviting to them and that it's not seen as a barricade. I think if they feel that they understand and know what's going on, hopefully they'll feel more comfortable. And I need to make sure that the staff are very welcoming of the community too. If somebody walks into a school and they're just seeing someone who's not very friendly, that just makes things more of a hurdle for them and doesn't make them feel very welcome. So we want to make sure that they're feeling good about when they come into a school and that they have a good experience. Lastly, I want to make sure that students feel empowered in their education, because if they feel confident about what's going on at school, they will let their parents know that as well. So if they're giving good information to their parents at home, like, oh, I have this great class, or this is a program that I'm in that's doing very well, then hopefully the parents get excited about that too when they see their children lighting up. So if the children are excited about something, hopefully that will spill over to the parents to say, well, I want to know why my teenager's so happy all the time.
Right.
Let me go to the schools and find out what's going on.
Yeah. In some cases, it's the light bulb goes off, the child has found something that really interests them.
Yep.
And it really is our job as parents to nurture that and encourage that, and let's get you more. What more can we give you?
Right.
That's great. So partnerships are very important, I know, to you and to the district. How are we going to see more partnerships forming in the district? We'll have a new mayor in Bremerton. Our former mayor was really close with our school district, very important for the city. Have a good school district, for the school district to have a good city, just like you've already explained. But let's talk about partnerships and what you see changing there.
Well, and I definitely agree. Partnerships are very important. I'm trying to go around and meet with the various heads of organizations or institutions to make sure that they know who I am and I know who they are, and that we have good communication going back and forth. So far I've met with the sheriff and the chief of police and the fire chief, and so I'm just going to keep going through the list of, president of the college and president of the hospital, and really go through there. I know that also as the economy changes, you have some changes in what's going on as far as the business environment, and you do have elections like the mayor. So once that gets resolved, then I'll set a time to meet with the mayor, city council folks, anybody like that. We also have our representation down in Olympia, our state senators and representatives that I want to make sure they know who I am, and that they can, if they want to know what's going on in schools, which I know they always do because they're very concerned about that I'm more than willing to talk with them and let them know, and I actually want to establish a way to update them on a regular basis. So we have the partnerships and relationships that are in the city. For me, I think it's also important that we have surrounding school districts as well. And I need to have a good relationship and good communication with the surrounding school districts and their superintendents, because there are times where partnerships are going to need to exist between and among the school districts. Because we don't have the same kind of size as like a Seattle or a Spokane or a Tacoma, you sometimes are at the mercy of some things that happen because of your size. People just say, okay, we'll take you and you and you, and you're all small, so we're not going to give you the best deal. if we can come together in some cases when we're trying to get some services or order some things and we're all on the same page, we can sometimes be more efficient with the resources that we have. But that requires, again, good communication between the districts. I think we're fortunate to have the ESD right here in Bremerton, so that's fantastic, as well as the Skill Center. And those are two things that bring in the other folks from other school districts on a regular basis. So I think it's a natural avenue for us to continue those partnerships with the surrounding areas as well. I see us as Bremerton specifically, but also just the region as well. I think if Bremerton is strong, it can help make the region strong. And that's a very important relationship to continue on.
Very good. Well, not to talk politics a lot, but there are some school district seats that are up for election this year, and not to beleaguer who's running or what their platforms are. What do you think makes a good school board member? What qualities do you look for?
Well, I think one of the things that's really actually nice about this particular election is that there are quite a number of people running. That to me is always a good sign. You don't have anybody that doesn't have there's no position that's not filled, which is good, and there's nobody running unopposed. So I think competition is always a good thing to have out there because it makes people feel like they have a choice.
That's right.
It's difficult when there is no choice. You know, this is it, I'm the only person, so on and so forth. So I think a good school board member is somebody who represents their community. I mean, that's really their job, is to listen to people and then bring those concerns and what they've heard to the school board meetings and have those conversations. And then to work as a team. A school board is a 5-member team, essentially. You have a president and you have 4 other members, and they need to work as a team, much like my job as the superintendent is to form my team within the district of the administrators. And the superintendent then is really that conduit between the school board and the day-to-day. I need to keep them up to date on what's going on in the district. And if they're hearing things that I haven't heard, I would expect them to let me know that there are some concerns in the community, this is what I'm hearing, and we just want you to know. So a good school board member has good communication skills and can work well with the other school board members because, again, they're a team, and work well with the superintendent in communicating. And I think just has a passion, you know, really for wanting to do what's best for Bremerton. And I think that that the people who are running all have that. They all are really interested in trying to do what's best for the community. And I think sometimes that's where we get lost sometimes in both politics and in other areas, is that when people see differences of opinion, they sometimes feel that someone doesn't have the best interest in mind. In my opinion, it's merely that they just have a different route that they want to take. I think the interests are all the same. They want a strong school district. They want the best too, what's best for kids and what's best for the community. They just might have a different approach to it. So really our success is taking that passion and being efficient with it. We can't be pulled in 5 different directions. We need to figure out what we're going to do, be efficient with our time and our resources, and then that's how we move together. If everybody's pulling against each other in these different directions, you go nowhere. It's just like, you know, having 5 ropes tied to a car in different directions. We're not going to go anywhere. So I think that all of these school board candidates will, you know, any one of them could make a great school board member, and I'd look forward to working with any and all of them. So once the elections are done, we'll get everybody together and then figure out how we're going to work together and how we're going to communicate.
Excellent. So the first day of school is not very far away.
No.
Where do you see yourself on the first day of school?
Oh, definitely out in each of the buildings. You know, if you call here, you probably won't be able to get a hold of me. So I plan on getting out there and seeing students as they arrive, being in each of the buildings. The good thing about Bremerton is that it's small enough I can get around to each of those buildings, sites within a day. You know, I don't want to be there just for 5 minutes. I want to spend some time, but really that day is going to be blocked out for being at each of these buildings and seeing what they're doing and how they're getting everything done, And, you know, just letting them know I'm the new superintendent, I'm out here. I've already been to each of the buildings already, some while students were there and some not. I came over a couple days before the July 1 date. But I have seen all the facilities, I know where they are, have an idea. I'll work with the rest of my cabinet and team to figure out how we're going to do the coverage. But I plan on being plenty visible out there throughout the year, beyond just the first day, and accessible so that people can, you know, just talk to me. Again, it's not only parents that sometimes have a hard time communicating or not feeling very comfortable with what's going on, but sometimes when the superintendent walks into the room, people tend to stop talking because they're concerned about what he or she might think, or that they're just going to trump. So it gets hard to sometimes be a part of a conversation because everyone can defer to you when you come in. However, I want people to know that I always would appreciate honesty over just them trying to say what they think I want to hear. That's not what I want to hear. If I'm asking somebody their opinion, I want to hear their honest opinion. Even if it doesn't happen to be what I think. That's what makes us strong, is hearing divergent opinions. And they could come up with something that I haven't thought of or haven't approached yet, and that could be a good idea. So that's what I plan on doing, and I figure when I drop by a classroom, it's a little bit more easy than me calling somebody to come to my office and talk about something.
People might be a little more comfortable on their own turf.
Yeah.
Well, Flip, we welcome you to the community. We know you're going to have a fabulous year, and you've got great vision, and the team concept just reeks from you, which is absolutely fabulous. You have a fabulous team already in place, and I think some changes and some new direction is going to happen, and it's so exciting for our district. And first of all, congratulations, and second, welcome to Bremerton. We know you'll make a difference, and school board or school district residents, this is your new superintendent. He is available. He might not be in this administration building where we're at today on Marion, but he'll be out and about in the community. Check the Bremerton School District website, and he certainly has email, and I'm sure he'll want to hear from everybody. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you all the best in your first year in Bremerton.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Flip Herndon, our new Bremerton School District Superintendent. Thanks for joining us.